The following story is an accumulation of knowledge gathered from Diablo lore and short stories. Viewer discretion is advised. So what is the Blood Knight? This class was recently introduced to Diablo Immortal about a year ago by Blizzard, under much anticipation and marketing. Known to be a cross between a paladin and a vampire, the Blood Knight has deep roots in Diablo's lore and history. The preferred weapon of the Blood Knight is the polearm, and the preferred attacks are a combination of brutal, swift strikes to the opponent, mixed in with dark vampiric magical abilities that can drain the opponent of their health and surrounding opponents in a very effective area of effect. Beyond their potent ability to vanquish their foes, Blood Knights have a deep history that mixes in the traditional history of vampires with those seen of the characters in Diablo. It all starts with the first Blood Knight, who was an ordinary man, Furnham. While far from ordinary, he was actually a knight assigned to protect a lord in the cityship of Gaia Cole. Unfortunately for Furnham, his lord protectorate was obsessed with the immortality bestowed to vampires and performed countless experiments on these vampires against their will. Now, these vampires are unlike the vampires of Blood Knights. They are feral. They have no control over their will and more or less give in to their insatiable hunger for blood and life force. One day, one of the vampires under experimentation had broken out and attacked the Lord and Furnham. In a way, fortunately for Furnham, the Lord was quickly extinguished, but the vampire then turned his sights on Furnham and mortally wounded him. One of the Lord's top mages who took part in these vampiric experiments found Furnham and the vampire, who was deceased by the time he had arrived. Furnham was mortally wounded and required urgent aid, and so the mage had no choice but to bestow his version of vampiric immortality, which he was able to decipher from the experiments, onto Furnham. Fortunately for Furnham, this worked, and it provided him not only immortality, but superhuman strength. The abilities that vampires controlled, including the ability to drain life force and energy through bloodlust, but also bestowed on Furnham the curse of vampirism. This meant that Furnham would have the thirst for blood, which he might not be able to control. Furthermore, the curse was extensive in that it still had the risk of turning Furnham and future Blood Knights into feral vampire beings. In the coming days, which led to months, to years, Furnham holed himself up in the basement or cellar of the Lord's castle. He invited those afflicted with the curse of vampirism to join him in hopes of controlling their feral nature and ultimately fighting against the dark forces of vampirism. As his teachings grew and his knowledge extended, Furnham eventually disappeared from the spotlight. His followers could not find him, and he was all but gone, without a trace of any existence. Nobody knows what happened to Furnham. My theory is that Furnham possibly turned feral, or was on the verge of becoming feral, and ended his life before true vampirism could take a hold of his body and soul. Regardless, his teachings lasted, and his students taught students, and soon the ways of the Blood Knight continued to grow, as seen in my character Malachas. Well, I hope this was an interesting journey into the initial lore provided to us by Blizzard regarding the Blood Knight, one of the first new classes introduced into Diablo lore through Diablo Immortal. There are other short stories that have been adapted to take a look at this version of events and further disciples of Fernum. And if you are interested, I do recommend reading them. And these are all accessible on the Blizzard website through the Diablo Immortal links. As for the remainder of the lore, stay tuned as we continue to delve into Diablo Immortal history, classes, and the Diablo lore in general. Till next time, this is King of Blades.